In Zeidon Alkinani, who's a doctoral researcher in politics and international relations at the University of Aberdeen. He specialises in Iraq and the Middle East and joins us from Doha. Zeidon, thanks so much for being on this News Hour. What are both countries hoping to achieve from this visit? Is it more than just about the economy and improving relations?
Well, both Iraq and Syria never officially cut ties in recent years to consider this state visit as a major revival to this assumed severe relations. But what we can see is that both Baghdad and Damascus have been very occupied with their own domestic hard security issues, such as Iraq's ISIS war between 2014 and 2017, and the Syrian civil war since 2011. But this visit can certainly be assessed through an overarching regional reconciliation, which included the Syrian return to the Arab League of Nations from the first place, with a particular facilitation by Riyadh and Abu Dhabi. And Iraq has been in an attempt in recent years to rebuild its Arab relations, and particularly amongst the GCC orbit since the end of Prime Minister Maliki's government, which ended in 2014. But serious actions were never taken until the interim government of Prime Minister Kadhimi. Now, a significant Iraqi diplomatic engagement with Syria in recent years meant that it could have countered the efforts Baghdad was trying to attempt or re-engage with the same Arab states which were boycotting and sanctioning Syria from the first place. But it's also worth mentioning that this Iraqi state visit to Syria may have been paved by an earlier visit around 5 months ago, when the Iraqi parliamentary speaker, Mohammed al-Halbousi, led a delegation of Arab lawmakers to Damascus to meet with the Syrian president the day after the 34th session of the Arab Inter-Parliamentary Union in Baghdad. Also last month, the Syrian foreign minister visited Baghdad, which also seemed to be in preparation for this development. And of course, as rightfully mentioned by your correspondent, Iraq and Syria have many common issues that are necessary to discuss, even if there were major disagreements or clashing policies many years ago, and including in recent times.
There's certainly Sorry, I was going to say there's certainly some momentum that we're seeing from Syria, but both leaders will no doubt be talking about border security as well. But Iraq still has some troops in Syria. Is that one of the problems that will be an issue, or is that one of the problems that has to be solved, rather, before Damascus can fully rejoin the Arab world?
Well, beyond the water scarcity and economic issues, many of the non-state actors in both countries controlling and playing a major role in the border checkpoints and even imposing tariffs and economically benefiting from trafficking between both countries are connected with one another. These are non-state actors that emerged during the ISIS wars in both countries, when both the Iraqi and Syrian governments arguably needed the necessary support during these wars. And now there's another development that took place in recent times, which is very connected to the recent development. And that is that there is a U.S. request to the Iraqi Prime Minister demanding that the armed groups in Iraq, mostly affiliated with the Islamic Republic of Iran, must ensure that their affiliated armed groups in Syria must stop targeting the U.S. military bases in Syria. And we've seen previous developments where this has escalated to many of the militarized, intensified disputes between the U.S. and Iran in January 2020, which eventually led to the U.S. airstrike that assassinated Qasem Soleimani. So it could be interestingly viewed that the timing of this visit is arguably connected to this issue. And it's also perhaps another reason why there has been such a long diplomatic gap between the two countries, despite sharing the same regional alliances to the larger extent. So we could say that the Syrian-Iraqi relations in recent years have been determined and influenced by non-state armed groups and regional players, rather than defined by neither of the countries themselves. Therefore, it was in some way contextual realities that determined the Iraqi-Syrian relations, despite the absence of any public and official diplomatic engagements. And now it's the same contextual realities determining to have an official engagement between these two. countries.
We have to leave it there. I'm sorry. It's certainly a complex issue and plenty of moving parts, but we appreciate your analysis. Zeidon Alkinani, a doctoral researcher in politics and international relations. Thank you for your